Evening everybody. So it's Friday night and I finally finished the rewire on my BMS system. So those of you that haven't been following the channel, why not subscribe immediately. But those of you who haven't and are watching this video, I'm putting Leaf batteries into an RX8 and the alignment of the batteries from the Leaf pack doesn't fit. Basically I can't get them into the RX8, so I'm having to reconstruct the way the batteries are put together, and I'll show you that in a minute. And part of that is redoing the BMS wiring, because in the Leaf you can imagine it's all obviously very tightly and neatly cabled up, and that cabling is not going to fix. I'm moving the batteries around, so I have to rewire it myself. So I've already done it once, but I use Cat5 cabling, and the Cat5 cable is not rated basically as a high enough voltage. I made a mistake, and there's a potential difference between the cells, could be up to 200 volts per pack, because there's kind of two packs that are going in, and the Cat5 is rated for 125 volts, so it probably might have been alright, but you know what, this vehicle's going to be able to do 80 mile an hour, and I'm not sure I felt happy that I could be in there, my kids could be in there, and the thing might catch fire. It might catch fire stationary because the BMS wiring is going to be always at that potential. So I thought it's best to bite the bullet. You know, the Cat5 cabling was physically, visibly physically smaller than the original Leaf wiring, so I thought it's just not right. You know, there's a reason why Nissan used the wiring that they used, and so I should replace it. So I bought a reel of 300 volt copper cable, pretty much exactly the dimensions, exactly the same amount of insulation, exactly the same amount of copper, and rated to the same rating, 300 volts. So I had to take apart the BMS wiring that I'd done and redo it, and it's been a bit of a challenge because the first time round I beautifully labelled everything, and when I'd finished I took all the labels off because it was all tested and working, and then I didn't have anything labelled up. So you can imagine I've got 49 cables that I need to spline into the original loom that plugs into the BMS system. Each one of those wires then solders into the connector which goes onto the battery. Yeah, pretty big job. Did make a mistake. Those of you that I do communicate with a bit more regularly will know that I did 6 of the wires wrong. I went on the connector, I'm just going down the connector, and I should have been going up the connector. Identified that, but unfortunately I've made the wires all the right length, and so what I ended up doing was just at the splicing into the loom, changed 6 of the wires over, 12 wires in total, because you have to swap 6 with another 6 and fix the problem. But I'll kind of show you that a little bit in a minute. The rest of this video is actually a stop motion of every element of me rewiring the BMS, right down to me making the new wiring loom. It's 12 minutes long, so anybody that gets through the whole video at stop motion, well done. You'll get a medal for that. But I thought I'd just do it all for those of you interested in kind of how much effort it takes to actually make an EV car. You soon learn that actually the battery configuration, BMS, battery holding, and where it's going to placement in the car is one of the bigger jobs or it probably is the biggest job of the whole EV conversion process. So just bear that in mind if you're looking at getting involved into converting a car into EV or building your own EV. So if we just come down here, this is my new wiring loom here. So there are 50 cables in there. This is 300 volt rated cable. This is my splicing. So I've spliced 49, there are 49 connectors into the original loom for the Leaf. I've spliced my 49 in there. I actually did 50 wires, so I have 1 spare just in case I had any problems, but fortunately didn't have any. So that's the original wiring loom, and these are the connectors that plug into the BMS. This is my wiring diagram that tells me which end here goes into which point here, which goes into all the way around. I've got 5 meters of cable in total, which come along the top here. The RX8 is about 4 meters long, so with a meter extra, and obviously the length of this as well, got plenty to play with, which is unlike me. I always do things right to the perfect millimeter, so I'm trying to learn. Give yourself a bit of scope, Dave. So here we go, we've got all the wiring coming down here, and it spans off to each connector, all the BMS down here, each connector all the way up here, and the original one that I damaged when I first took them out the Leaf. So there we go, all nice and neat. I'm reprinting these. I've got some, these are much firmer. These just don't come off now, to the point where I'm not going to put them on until I'm actually in the car. These are much better designed, so they're really solid to stop me accidentally electrocuting myself. And there we go, I'll put all the copper connectors in. So I've got a couple of jobs to do. I'm going to go back through each one of these here, referenced onto the pinout that I've got here, and using my continuity here, just check that I've got them all in the right place, because the last thing you can do, if you get any of this wrong, when I plug it into the BMS, it will blow the BMS up. So I need to make sure I've got all this perfect. I can't actually do continuity because they're all connected in series, all these batteries, continuity will just buzz everywhere. So actually I'm just going to use resistance, and when you get the right connector, I've got about 0.1 of an ohm resistance on the wire, which I think should be okay, and that tells me that each connector is correct, because if you get to the wrong connector, then obviously there's a much higher resistance because you've got a whole battery in the way. So I can check all my cabling is good, and this pack will actually live in the RX8 on its back, so all these connectors are going to be on the top. And that comes back to another thing I'm going to do. One of the guys was chatting to the EV London guys, and one of them just said, oh, I'm going to mock up my box for the batteries out of cardboard. And I was like, that's just a brilliant idea. So actually I'm going to use plywood, just get some little thin plywood and mock up the box, because I've been just putting it off because fabricating the box is a faff anyway. Fabricating it and getting it wrong is just a double faff. So I'm going to fabricate the box out of plywood. I mean, it just sounds really obvious. I don't know why I didn't think of it. I can then put it in the car, make modifications to it, and then when I'm happy, actually get the proper metal chassis made and put the batteries in it. So there we go, there's my BMS over there. I've got two, one that's broken, one that's not. Once I've got all this wired and tested, I'll plug it back in, check all my code and everything still works. I've got the other batteries which are still using the original Leaf BMS wiring. I don't need to change that. And I can check my code and check the cell voltages all register. Fingers crossed that that works, because if it doesn't work and I've got too high a resistance or something, then I might cry. But I think, to be honest, I don't think it will use resistance. Nearly all the lithium-ion battery chargers that I've used with BMS tend to use voltages as the basis of what's going on. I'm probably going to regret saying that. I'm going to get a lot of feedback now saying, no, it's all resistance-based. I don't think it will be. So there we go. You've got 12 minutes of stop-motion video coming up. Have a look. And, not stop-motion, is it? It's time-lapse. Time-lapse video coming up. Have a look at what I did to get to where I got to. And I'll catch you next time. Cheers. Did you actually watch all 12 minutes of that video? I'm not sure I believe you, but if you're here and you did watch all 12 minutes, well done. Comment below, let me know what you thought, and don't forget to subscribe and all the other things you have to do on YouTube, and then you'll catch my next video as I progress through this project and get this EV car on the road.